Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast number 111, triple ones, 111.
Pretty cool. It's going to be a great podcast. Maybe like the 111 podcast.
No, it's number 1 times 3.
Yep.
That would just be 33. So, okay.
No, number 1 times 3 is 3.
Okay. Wow. Oh, man. Hey, guys, I'm really tired. I'm sorry. It's been a long week.
It has. Sorry. I was like, I can't let this fly on a family-friendly podcast. So many 9-year-olds are going to have like crises.
Anyhow, moving on very quickly. Thank God it's just Kat and I, because if Dave was here, I would never hear the end of that.
No.
So Kat and I are here to enjoy this awesome podcast. My good friend and author now, Nick Furneaux, is going to come on the show. We're going to talk about his book and talk about cryptocurrency and does it apply to social engineering at all? Well, let's find out and get Nick on the show. How are you, Nick?
Yeah. Hello from the 53rd state. Or is that too political? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I don't know. It's as Britain is no longer going to be part of Europe. You know, we need friends. So, hey, America.
Way to represent the entire country.
Anyway, should we wrap it there?
No, that was a great podcast. Nice having you, Nick.
Yeah, any time. And I'll start working on my American accent.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe Canadian would be better for you.
Fantastic. Hello. Anyway, Chris and Kat.
Yeah, nice to have you here. So it's been a while since you've been on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Was that you or was that me? Were we ignoring each other? Or?
I think it was a mutual assured ignorance.
Is ignorance a word?
Well, it is now. I think we could make ignorance a word.
If we just keep using it enough, it'll become a thing.
Yeah, my uncle used to do that. My uncle taught English, and he used to just mispronounce words, and he would say it enough that people would start mispronouncing them as well. And because he taught English, everyone assumed he knew what the heck he was doing, but he just did it to wind people up.
Just like gaslighting everybody. That's great.
That's right.
I'm getting to understand you more, Nick. Now, why you are the way you are.
Because my family,
family
just winds up the world.
But there is something exciting that has happened in your life since we've spoken maybe a year ago.
I lost some weight. Yeah, it's been a very exciting time.
Congratulations, Nick.
Thank you very much. It was a battle, and
you gave it to me. That's really not kind of you.
Right.
I'm very mad at you for that. We have to talk about that on this podcast. But you also had a book come out. You published your first book. Tell us about that.
Yeah, indeed. I'm not quite sure why I wrote a book. In fact, when we first started talking about writing a book, I had these wonderful mental images of being sat on a balcony looking out over the Mediterranean Sea with the sun glinting off the wave tops, as with my old typewriter, I fashioned a piece of art that everyone would want to read. Actually, as you'll probably know, Chris, writing a book is about being squashed into an economy seat, flying at the back of an aeroplane, or at 2:00 in the morning when everyone else is asleep. Trying to hit your deadlines. But I wrote a book
There
called...
was no glistening.
Yeah.
No.
Wrote a book called Investigating Cryptocurrencies. And really because there was no information out there on how you investigate cryptocurrency crime. And the breadth of crimes that now include cryptocurrencies or crypto assets, as many people are now calling them, is quite extraordinary. And there's really no knowledge as to where to start investigating those types of problems. So the book is a bit of a starter for 10. It takes you from really no knowledge up to being able to do some damage in an investigation. And it would appear to be selling very well. So, yeah, very happy.
So, obviously we focus on social engineering here. So when you and I talked about coming on the podcast, I was like, man, I really want to promote your book, but I don't think I can even ponder an SE angle. And then you said, "Hark unto me."
Yes, in my good English, soon-to-be American accent. Hark, young one. Sit at my feet and listen and learn.
Hark unto me and listen to. I have an SE angle for you, young laddie. It was something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So though the book itself, it sort of has a tagline, understanding, extracting and analyzing blockchain evidence. The reality is the type of crimes that are now including cryptocurrencies. So let's just take a look at a couple of crimes that we've known about just recently that include a heavy cryptocurrency angle. So let's take the first one. So we had in London, there a lot of people will know, or they can just go and browse to a website called localbitcoins.com. And localbitcoins.com is a place where you can go and buy bitcoins on the street, if I can use that term.
Like literally.
Yeah, you literally contact a seller, you go meet them in a cafe, you give them money, they transfer you whatever Bitcoin or Ethereum that you've bought. You sit and drink coffee together until it gets confirmed on the blockchain, and you walk away.
So you literally meet a person in real life.
Yeah.
And you slide a suitcase across the table, and then in your account, Bitcoin pops up.
That's it. It's pretty cool. And you think, well, why would anyone want to do that? Well, of course, there's no history essentially, and no actual connection for the exchange. So, but we had a fascinating case. I won't go into detail. I think it's still in the courts, but I'll just give you the general, where they contacted the seller. So some guys contacted the seller and convinced the seller to have them come to his home. Now, this was extraordinarily stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
But these guys convinced, they wanted to meet him and they wanted to talk about some stuff. So we want to be private. So can we come to your home? Good SE stuff, good social engineering. They turned up at his front door. He invited them in. They beat him, tied him up, and made him transfer them all of his Bitcoin reserves.
And how much Bitcoin are we talking about?
Enough to retire to a small Caribbean island.
Oof.
Oh, where the light glints off the waves.
That's right, with an old typewriter. It wasn't me, by the way. Looking for a better place to write version 2 of how to get away with cryptocurrency crime.
Coming out next month.
Yeah, that's right. How to be a more effective criminal by Nick Furneaux. And so you again, it's good old-fashioned theft, but with the social engineering aspects included. Let's now look at the second one that I had in mind, which has been in the news this week. Have either of you guys been reading about these sextortion scams or porn scams?
Yeah, I just did a news interview about them.
Great social engineering. Well, not great, obviously, but so they're taking dumps. So say, for example, take the LinkedIn dump. So I got one of these emails and the data was from the LinkedIn dump. And it said, "Hey, Nick, how are you doing? We know who you are, and this is your password." And it was my LinkedIn password from a few years ago. We know that you've been looking at terrible, dodgy, adult-type sites. Let's keep this family friendly. And by the way, when you've been looking at those really bad things, we've been filming you looking at those sites. So unless you pay us, X number of Bitcoin, we're going to release those videos to all of your social networks. Now, this is incredibly successful as a social engineering attack because they work on the principle that many people will indeed have been looking at adult type sites. They work on the principle that you are not going to want to be filmed looking at those sites. And they include data within the email that demonstrates that it does seem that they know you. This is incredibly effective. Where we then pick up the crime is that the people then say, yeah, I'll go pay the money. There's a guy called Sec Guru who's done a bunch of work on this, and the wallets that he is monitoring on Bitcoin have had over $250,000 worth of payments now. So when you take like WannaCry and this sort of stuff that made about $50, and they were like, the world is ending. Actually, this is significantly more effective, and we have anecdotal evidence of attempted suicides and all many a manner of terrible things. But $250,000 that Sec Guru has identified. And how can we identify it? Because we can cluster addresses. We can take an address that is in an email and we can begin to figure out who owns other addresses that owns that one. And then we can start to look at the success that those addresses are having, and we can start to follow the money. So I did just a little while back. I did the webinar for Ethical Hacker Network, and we actually demonstrated just in a 30-minute demo. We took an address that we know was being used for emails, and we're able to follow that all the way through to them cashing out at an exchange. So it's a very, very interesting one. But again, criminals go where the money is. They'll use social engineering attacks to be able to coerce people into sending money. But whereas money is easy to trace, cryptocurrencies maybe not quite as easy. And that's where the book comes in. That's where our training comes in, and all the rest of it.
I was going to say, out of curiosity, have you worked through tracking money through Bitcoin with individuals or businesses more? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. At the moment, most of the work that we get is from law enforcement. So a lot of law enforcement, they're really behind the curve. They know they're behind the curve. So I'm not saying anything that's going to upset anyone. And they're coming to us and saying, either could you do this investigation for us, or could you shoulder surf us doing this investigation and just help us, understand when we need to turn left and turn right. So most of the work we're doing at the moment is very much about supporting law enforcement. But actually, just this week, we had a call, and it's somebody who's lost, a large amount of Bitcoin to a hack attack. I won't go any further than that because it's a live job. But it's like $250,000 that this person has lost from their Bitcoin accounts. And there was both a social engineering and a technical attack element to it. So mostly law enforcement at the moment. But to be honest, Kat, that's mostly because the people that know about us is law enforcement. Most of our clients are law enforcement, and we're known to them, and so that's where our clients tend to come from.
Not after this podcast.
Well, we're happy to get the work. So it's definitely a growth area for us at the moment.
Would you say that the majority of crimes happening like on the dark web, or I hate to use the word because people can just start drinking and it's too early, but like cyber-based crimes, infosec-based crimes are using cryptocurrency as their payment source?
Yes, yeah, very much so. And actually, interestingly, even though criminals know that there is a certain traceability to Bitcoin and to Bitcoin Cash and its derivatives, it's easy. Instead of it's real tough to publish a bank account number or a Western whatever they're called number, and they know it's eminently traceable, and they know that even though we have techniques to be able to trace stuff through the blockchain, they know it's harder. And so it's easy just to put up a Bitcoin address. There's a great picture I've got just on my desktop at the moment, actually, of a group of terrorists in balaclavas holding up a sign that says "Support." I won't say the group, and then the big "We accept Bitcoin" sign on the sign that they're holding up with a Bitcoin address. It's absolutely fantastic, and so it's easy, and it means that anybody in the world can just punt some coin at that address, and they're supporting their local neighborhood terrorist group. So it's easy.
So in that case you talked about, though, you said you were able to follow it to where they were going to an exchange and taking the money out. So doesn't that mean then that you can then figure out who took it out, or at least where they took it out?
Possibly. What you're then moving into is a slightly different investigation. So once you've identified the exchange or whoever that you're cashing out to, or the bad guys are cashing out to, you've then got to hope that the exchange will play ball and give you information. All you're likely to get is a bank account number, probably in an unfriendly country. So you're then having to do what financial investigators do for a living, is then following the money through the banking system. So it becomes a different type of investigation. So it's not that we can't do it. It's certainly harder, but it is possible.
So just because you see it getting extracted doesn't mean you now can easily figure out who.
No.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Wow.
Huh?
It is interesting stuff. But since cryptocurrency seems it doesn't really have intrinsic value until you take it out and turn it into actual cash. Is that correct? Or is there...
That's a good question, actually, Chris. There's a lot of researchers at the moment that really are railing against the term cryptocurrency. Because, I can't pop down to Walmart and buy a smoothie with Bitcoin right now. So there's one or two coffee shops in New York.
Do you go to Walmart to buy smoothies? I'm just curious.
I don't know. Basically, I'm English. I don't know if you noticed, and I know the word Walmart and I know the word smoothie. So I was trying to help
So you were trying to connect with the American audience.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Maybe I should have gone Starbucks. Would that be better?
Yeah, that would have maybe been better, because I'm just thinking, I've never. Kat, can you buy smoothies at Walmart?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess you could buy like packaged ones.
Hey, in which case there's a huge market here that Walmart is missing out on. Maybe they're listening in. Walmart, start selling smoothies.
The Walmart demographic and the smoothie demographic don't have a ton of overlap.
Yeah. I think maybe if it was a deep fried smoothie, that may be a little bit.
Yeah, I went to a Walmart once, and it was one of those sort of maybe not twice.
Yeah.
But hey, I don't know. And I'm sure everyone that works for them is lovely.
Yeah, but now Walmart's never calling you for crypto investigations.
Never.
So
yes, when they start accepting Bitcoin, I'm sure they won't.
Yeah, that's right. So let's just let's back up. Let's backpedal just a little bit.
So you're at Walmart buying a smoothie and you can't use
Absolutely.
your crypto wallet.
And so maybe I'm at Walmart. Maybe I'm walking past Walmart to get to Starbucks.
Okay.
There we are.
To buy my smoothie, or I use.
They're generally in the same neighborhood, Nick. See how much you need to learn a lot about America, man.
Oh, well, I'm going to be in America in a couple of weeks, so maybe if I walk into a Walmart, they can beat me or shoot me with one of the guns that they sell or something.
Yeah, you're going to be in an area with some very interesting Walmarts. You should definitely take a tour.
Where he can see some really fun things.
What I can't do is at the moment generally go out with a Bitcoin wallet, if I can use that colloquialism, and buy stuff. Generally, the cost of transaction is quite high with Bitcoin. The values mean that I'm transacting tiny fractions of Bitcoin. They're called satoshis, little fractions of Bitcoin. So there's an awful lot of researchers saying, this is more of an asset. So if you own a Bitcoin, you own something that today's worth about $5,000. But the only way you can really use that is either to buy an apartment in Singapore, because there's some guys out there that will accept Bitcoin for the apartments, or just trade them with other people that want to buy Bitcoin, or cash them out when you feel you've made some money. So it is more of an asset, actually. So we are using the term crypto assets an awful lot more. The reality is, though, is that at some point somebody is going to come up with a blockchain-based currency, and everybody under 16 is going to start using it to buy stuff and sending money to each other. And when it becomes WhatsApp type of viral, I think we'll see it really become a currency. But at the moment, most of them are assets, and we've got people developing on like the Ethereum platform, everything from gambling sites to auction sites to all manner of stuff. So we will see this become more mainstream. But at the moment, Bitcoin Cash are not quite there yet as a currency.
So I'm going to ask a very noobish question, because maybe someone else has it out there, and I think maybe it's just a good discussion point. It seems like there's cryptocurrencies popping up every 15 seconds. So can anyone just go make a cryptocurrency?
Oh, yeah. If you want to browse to ethereum.com/token, all the code is there. And if you just know what you're doing, we could make a Chris coin, which would be awesome.
It would. It'd be worth so much.
I tell you what, Walmart would accept that. That's what I'm saying.
They would.
We'd have to give Rachel like a starter kit of Chris coin.
Oh, we should. I mean, there's about 2,000 trading cryptocurrencies at the moment.
So that means anyone can just make them, and all of a sudden they have actual monetary value.
But do they? I mean, it is the case of, yes, you've created a cryptocurrency. You have a method such as they call it mining to be able to solve cryptographic problems, which are hard, which means the kit is expensive, which means that when you are awarded a coin for solving a hard cryptographic problem, it has value in that it costs you money to mine it, to make it.
Or if you're buying them, you're actually spending
Actual
real
cash.
money.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, in order to put it into, like I have a bunch of different cryptocurrencies, and real money was spent to obtain them.
But you were happy to spend a certain value for an ether, or for a Ripple coin, or for a Bitcoin. And so because you were happy to do that, that's what it was worth. Do you see what I mean? So if we made the Chris coin, and I came along and said, I think there's future here. I'm willing to give you $1 a coin. That's what it's worth. And so now Chris coin is worth $1 a coin. And so at the moment, coins have a value because to generate a coin costs money. In real world, it costs computing power and physical electricity and cooling electricity and all the rest of it. So it does cost money to create a Bitcoin or a Bitcoin Cash coin or whatever it might be. But the real value is in whether somebody is willing to hand over hard currency, fiat currency, in order to be able to obtain one.
They could also attribute value to it, correct? And that's why it is used in so many criminal cases, because it represents something that another individual would want.
Yeah, and if you go to etherscan.io, which is like the primary blockchain explorer for Ethereum, and click on the tokens tab, you will see that there's a vast number of companies that are building infrastructure on the Ethereum blockchain environment to do all manner of different things. I mean, the reality is, and it's a little bit of a wild west at the moment, the technology. So, if the three of us, we should set up a company, and all we have to call it is the AI Cloud Blockchain Company, and people will throw money at us. No one knows what we do or how we do it, but it's on the cloud and it's a blockchain and there's AI involved, so it must be awesome.
By the way, I just trademarked that, so you can never say that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if I do, I have to pay you in Chris coin.
Yes, yeah, Chris coin.
And there are problems. So at the moment, we're seeing advertisements on TV that say we are bringing blockchain to security, or there's a company in Sweden bringing the blockchain to space exploration. What the hell does that even mean? Nobody knows what it means, and so people are throwing money at it just in case it turns out to be cool. And this is the problem, and it will settle down. And we will find that there are real, tangible sort of systems and businesses that can build itself on a transaction system that self-secures itself because of the way the cryptography builds on a blockchain. Actually, a good example that we were talking about earlier this week is voting systems. So imagine a voting system whereby, so just to give you an idea, a Bitcoin address is just a public key. And I'm sure most of your listeners understand what a public key is. So a Bitcoin address is a public key. If you have the private key that can unlock that public key, you can transact the coin behind it. So imagine if you had a voting system where your identity is locked with your private key, and you can now vote using your public key, essentially. You'd have a system whereby you can transact your vote once, but it would be a public ledger. So everyone could see the votes being cast in real time. The blockchain would self-count the votes. So, as long as the code was solid, you could have no voting fraud, because one private key that is given to one person can only vote once. And there would be no bits of paper getting lost and left under desks and in, voting boxes that get lost and all this sort of stuff. So, there are real solid potential for blockchain technology to be used.
But then how would they perform bribery if we did that?
Well, that's an extremely good point. And we would need to think about No, I'm not going to say that because what I was about to say was completely inappropriate.
Yes, thank you.
And somebody was going to take offense at what I was about to say.
Hey, Kat, let's take a quick break from the show to talk about what's going on in the world of SE.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. We're looking really deep into 2019 at this point.
Can you believe that?
I mean, can't.
It's only like November, and we're actually talking about like the summer of 2019.
Yeah, it's nuts, but exciting.
It is. But before we get there, let me just quickly mention again, since I know it's going to be the last month, but we want to thank our sponsors for the SE villages that we have run at DEF CON. It would not have been possible without the support from KnowBe4. Great group of guys there, and they actually came out to also physically support us and be at the village. Pin Drop, I think this is their 5th or 6th year they've been with us, supporting us financially, and of course helping us with the village. And then the Hillbilly Hit Squad with Chester and Roberts. Those guys they're just an amazing group of guys that come out, and they've helped us so much for the last couple of years. So we truly appreciate them. And at DerbyCon, we had Red Sky supporting us there at the SE Village at DerbyCon. I really want to thank them for all that they've done there to make it possible to run those villages. A couple quick things I really want to mention. I got a lot of questions about this, so I'm just going to put it out there up front. If people want to know what we're doing with the Innocent Lives Foundation, you can check out the website at innocentlivesfoundation.org. But it's our 501c3 nonprofit that we started to help protect kids that are being preyed on by predators and people. We try to unmask those who are preying on those kids. So you can check it out more there. Also, I hit a bucket list item, and people have been yelling at me for not talking about it more. But I gave a TEDx talk all about amygdala hijacking and emotional content and how it works against us as social engineers. So you could check that out. Just go to the YouTube page and TEDx Fulton Street, type in my name, and you'll get it there. Now, let's quickly talk about what's going on in our world of training. This is 2019 training now. We did release it February 4th through 8th is our Advanced Practical Social Engineering in Orlando. Come and see Kat and I. They're training that class. There's still seats left. We have some filled, but there's still seats left, so get into that as quick as you can. For any APSE students listening, I'm very sorry, but MLSE has sold out. I've never seen this before. 4 hours. 4 hours it sold out. So I know you've been emailing me and asking if you're an APSE student, but it is already done. But we have another APSE class in Bristol, UK, May 13 through 17. So jump on the site there. We already have a couple slots sold for that, so you want to get into there before that fills. That's a smaller venue than the one in Orlando, so we don't have as many seats available. And then first time we're doing this in a couple of years, but we're having an advanced OSINT for social engineer class. That's April 23 through 24 in Denver, Colorado. So if you want to join Ryan and Colin there with that, get onto the website and check that one out. What else am I missing? Oh, my new book.
Yeah.
I got a new book. I know. Social Engineering, the Science of Human Hacking. Really excited about this book. So I'm really happy too with the feedback from the community. It's got some solid 5 stars, so I'm really happy to see what's going on there with that. You can check that out on Amazon. Am I forgetting anything, Kat?
I don't think so. That takes us to the summer.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get back to the show. So I still I think about when we look at any kind of like the filth that's on the dark web that gets sold, whether it's child pornography or revenge porn or the sexploitation videos, things that you talked about. It's always transacted in Bitcoin.
Often, yeah.
But if all of a sudden Bitcoin was just rendered worthless, then all those transactions were basically free.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, actually. As long as the people were still holding the value of the transaction in Bitcoin. Now, if depending on the newspaper you read, there's a newspaper in the UK that at least once a week has a story about the death of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is dead. It's over. And then the following week, it's Bitcoin has gone up in price. And then the following week, Bitcoin is dead. The reality is Bitcoin's here to stay. It's not going to die. There is an intrinsic, inherent value to the coins. And it will stay as an asset. Whether we have seen a tremendous sort of correction of value from when it was $20,000 last December. It's now trading around the $5,000. That feels fairly comfortable. And we're seeing a more stable trading platform. So I don't think it's going to die. I don't think it's going to go to zero. But of course, a lot of people, they're doing their badness. They're getting Bitcoin for their badness. They then, move the coins around to try and make them invisible, and then they cash out in whatever way they can into real money, so that they can go and buy smoothies in Walmart.
Way to bring that back around.
I think.
I just had to go there.
That needs to be in the title of this podcast: "Smoothies at Walmart" with Nick Furneaux, or something like that.
Smoothies at Walmart.com. I can see it's a blockchain AI cloud business.
Yeah, that's just gonna, how about AI smoothies with crypto with blockchain?
Yeah,
at Walmart.
Smoothies that make you artificially more intelligent.
Smoothies.ai.
Yes, at Walmart.
Do you know, we've got this situation at the moment. It is ridiculous, but there are companies out there that say we are an AI company because they put a for then loop in their code, or an if statement. We got, if this happens, then do this. It's AI. It's making decisions. And basically everything that has an if then statement in it has become AI. It's a little bit ridiculous. But again, we'll see stabilization in that market.
So, Nick, I'm really curious about the question about the investigative side of this. You had mentioned that once the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency or crypto asset exits like the crypto realm into a bank account, the type of investigation changes to more of a traditional financial investigation. This is probably because I don't know what I'm talking about, but in my head, the Bitcoin investigations are like a financial investigation with a modern or technological face. If that is not true, could you explain the difference between those a little bit?
You are absolutely right. For me, the investigation of something like Bitcoin really does fall under the purview of financial investigators. They just need to understand this new space. And actually, we've developed a class just for forensic accountants and for financial investigators, because they need to understand how the movement of money works on a blockchain, which is fundamentally dissimilar to the way that it functions within the banking system. Cryptocurrency investigations, if we have got investigators listening to the podcast, it's a little tricky because in an investigation, we may go get a hard drive, and the techniques to be able to acquire Bitcoin addresses or private keys off the hard drive is a digital forensic task. But to seize those assets, that's a financial investigator task, which is a different skill set. But the reality is we need to, if we can, be seizing those assets at the point of seizure of the hard drive, because the bad guy could have his brother, who's also got the private keys, and as soon as his brother's been arrested, moves all of the cryptocurrency. So police forces and investigators are facing quite a complicated issue right now, whereby they used to have guys go through the door that seized hard drives and took them back to the police station. If they do that now, they may lose the assets forever. So actually, they need digital investigators going in, doing the forensics bit live. They also need FIs going in the door to do the seizure of those assets live. And this is a very different frame of reference to how digital forensics have been done traditionally. So it's a big change. It is a big change. So I apologize for, people that are here from just the security realm, but for those investigators, they will recognize that as being a problem, and law enforcement is struggling to catch up.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think people, even if they're here and this is not their area of expertise, are still going to find that fascinating, because it sounds like now like someone could really commit crime with this, get away with it, and it'd be very, very hard to catch them. So how do people stay safe if they're interested in being involved in Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency and investing in that?
Okay, so here's the thing. If you own Bitcoin, you don't have any Bitcoin on your computer. Okay, this is a really big misunderstanding. I had a phone call from a police force about a year ago and said, "Oh, we've seized a machine and it's got 10 Bitcoin on it." And I said, "No, I've got them here." And they went very confused and went very quiet. "What do you mean you've got them there?" "Well, because I can see the blockchain, so I can see the Bitcoin you're talking about." "I don't understand. The Bitcoin's on their wallet here." "No, it's not. When you buy Bitcoin, all you own is the private key to transact them. That's all. So how do you protect your Bitcoin? You protect your private key. And there's actually a website out there that says, enter your private key here and we'll check. And if it's ever leaked to the
Oh
internet, we'll let you
no.
know.
Oh no! Please tell me people don't fall for that.
But I bet they do, because that's why our jobs are secure.
That's
Oh
right. Of
no!
course people do, because they don't understand what that private key really means. So what we've got is we've got companies like Coinbase that try not to give you your private key, because they know people can be stupid with them. So to protect your assets, you must protect your private key. So if somebody's using Electrum or a tool like that to be their wallet, you can back up your private key. You can back it up to 12 seed words, and you need to put that on a piece of paper in a fireproof safe. And maybe keep Electrum switched off on your machine. Deinstall it. Don't have it running all the time unless you're trading Bitcoin all the time. Keep that private key safe. And as long as that private key is safe, then your assets are safe. End of.
A company like Bitcoin that is paid to do that may be a good idea.
Yeah, well, so you've got obviously all these exchanges. There's loads of them. I just mentioned Coinbase as one of them. And this is no disrespect to any of these exchanges, but the biggest losses in cryptocurrencies to date have been hacks against exchanges. So the big exchanges are very aware of that, and they're working really hard to secure their back ends and all the rest of it. But we're continuing to see successful attacks against exchanges. So if you don't know what you're doing, sure, trust the exchange, keep your assets there, let them protect it. Take a look at what the insurances are if those things get lost. If you know what you're doing, pull your assets away from the exchanges and protect your private key.
So are are the attacks that you mentioned on those mainly SE based attacks, or what have they been?
One of the problems that we're having at the moment with some of the big exchange attacks is that they are not going public on how the attacks happened. And one can understand why that is, because you're then going to get 57,000 sort of 17-year-olds in their bedroom going to have a go against the other exchanges. So we are both hearing, both accurately, anecdotally, that the attacks are predominantly SE based. So, how do you do a mobile phone? You phone up with all the information about your target, don't you? So if you want to do a SIM clone, you phone up and they say, "What's the date of birth?" And you look down your research and your OSINT that you've done and go, "Oh, yeah, it's the 1st of May, 75." And they go, "Thank you very much. And what's your cat's name?" And you look down your OSINT and the picture on Instagram that said that their dog's name was Zola. And you say, "It's Zola." And they go, "Great. What do you need?" "Oh, I need a new SIM." Job done. You can use exactly the same SE techniques against exchanges because they have got similar things and they've got similar security questions and all the rest of it. So we are seeing now some exchanges are using, two-factor authentication, different versions of two-factor authentication that makes it difficult to social engineer, but not all of them are up to speed. So, the exchanges are working hard. They're doing their best, but you've got to do your research on the exchanges. Where are they? Are you trusting the exchange that's in Badistan?
Badistan.
I got a funny feeling Badistan is an actual place.
Why don't we call it Walmart stand?
Walmart is, yeah, Smoothie stand.
Smoothest stand. Oh wait, here. AI stand. There we go. That's the best country ever now.
Chrisistan.
Chrisistan.
Actually, Katistan sounds a little bit like Kazakhstan, but isn't. So we should go with Katistan. It's somewhere in the Trans-Caucasus, no one really knows where it is. But it has an emperor and and people in black outfits look like panthers or something.
There you go. As a great coastal region, we have lots of typewriters and waves that glisten.
and if you say it with your British accent, we'll just believe it over here.
Oh, absolutely. That's why everyone's now going to Walmart's for smoothies. We hear you sell awesome smoothies and take Bitcoin for them.
We heard it from our British chap.
It must be true.
Where's our smoothies?
He knows the royal family.
Take my Bitcoin wallet. Here it is.
Actually, it's great. Whenever I'm in America, you go into a bar or something, or go into a restaurant, you so often get asked, "Do you know the royal family?" And I say, well, yes, of course, every time, of course, everybody knows the royal family in England. We're all close friends because there's only about 8 of us that live here. And, we're a tiny island, and smaller than New York, actually, from Scotland to Cornwall, and it's always great. And then, really, you know them? Oh, ever so well.
We had Sunday roast the other day.
We had tea together with the Queen just recently. Yeah. So I have her number. Would you like her number?
I'll give it to you if you tell me your passwords.
Yeah, that's right. In exchange for your private key, I will give you the Queen's phone number.
Man,
it's terrific.
So if someone was not into cryptocurrency investigations, would your book still be a benefit to read and help in understanding?
If I'm honest, the first 30% of the book I think will be interesting to anybody in security, because one of the things that we noticed is how much inaccurate information there was on how cryptocurrencies work. So about the first 30% gets you from knowing little or nothing up to really understanding how the engine room of a blockchain cryptocurrency functions. We then go into quite a bit of OSINT, actually, Chris, which of course, again, will be of interest to a lot of your listeners, because of course the blockchain is public ledger. It's online. It's OSINT. It's amazing how often you can search a Bitcoin address and find some entry on Reddit where some guy has been saying, I've been scammed by this guy with this address. So it's amazing how much research you can actually do just by Googling, amazingly. And we cover a lot of that and how we can Google dork stuff to do with cryptocurrencies on Google and the like. But when we get into the more nitty-gritty forensic-y stuff, that would be more specific to the people that would be involved in that type of investigation.
And for anyone listening that needs a translator, that's OSINT.
Oh, sorry, not OSINT. I'm sorry, it's OSINT.
We're not doing Australian intelligence gathering.
Australian intelligence, yes.
But just wanted to make sure that people can understand.
I was trying to be American again, because we tend to say OSI here. So we'll tend to say OSI. We're doing OSI on this, and so I was trying to help again. So it's OSINT in Walmart while drinking a smoothie.
I think there's a takeaway here about Nick's ability to pass as an American.
Oh, we've so got to do that, haven't we? We've got to do a test. Can Nick pass as an American? There's a whole Netflix series right there, isn't there?
So far, I would say that would be very entertaining from what I've seen.
Oh, I was trying to set you up for that book question, because I'll say I've read it. I have a copy here. And I'm not a cryptocurrency investigator at all. And I would agree with your assessment. I would think more than 30%. I don't say it because I want to give a teaser. There's an amazing illustration that Nick talks about some ancient currency in a very small island that made cryptocurrency actually very clear to me. And it made it really understandable because of that illustration. So if you're still sitting here going, I'm not really sure what this stuff is, the book will definitely help you with that part of it. So I recommend it. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit about other things that you do. So I'm going to do a little promotion here for you. Then I want you to talk about where you're training this. So I get asked this question constantly about OSINT training. Because we have an OSINT class that we do. It's a 2-day class. It's mainly geared around corporate type of OSINT that you would do for like C-level folks and things like that. But then people say, if I wanted something different, maybe not just a corporate OSINT, something longer and a little more in-depth or more hardcore, where would I go? And I always talk about your class, to the point of that we actually hired you to fly in and we held it in the beautiful Scranton, Pennsylvania area,
Right next to the Walmart.
right next to Walmart. And the one year that Pennsylvania decided to have snow in May, which was just ridiculous.
The class was so amazing. The snow didn't matter.
So tell us about your class, your OSINT class, or OSINT.
OSINT.
Tell us about your Australian intelligence class.
Well, Chris, as you know, we're not a training agency. We teach a little bit like you guys. Actually, we teach what we do, and so as we're doing OSINT. Is that it? It's OSINT investigation.
You sound so American.
Yeah, that's it. As we do OSINT investigations and we face particular problems, we will often develop solutions to those problems. So, a good example might be how difficult it is now to extract raw data from Facebook. So a few years ago, we were doing everything through an API. We could just use an API, we could talk to the backend database of Facebook, and we could get the data. But because people have been helpfully sort of tearing the rip out of that and pulling more data than they should from Facebook have turned that off. So we're like, how do we do this now? So now we teach how to build data scrapers from the raw HTML code within the Facebook page. So as we solve problems, we just build them into a class. So the OSINT class, the advanced OSINT class, I mean, you better understand what an IP address is and how to search Google because, we're not going to be covering basic OSINT. We do 4 days, pretty much full on, aren't they? They're pretty busy 4 days.
Yeah.
We don't stop for breath. Teaching methodologies, sites, software, techniques to be able to solve more advanced problems. And we get great feedback, but it's different every single time. And in fact, I'm teaching in a few weeks' time, and I've just had to send a brand new manual to the printers because loads of stuff has changed, and we've had to, make a load of adjustments to it. So it's a great class because it's utterly dynamic. And we respond to feedback. So actually, when we were out with you guys, we had some terrific lads. I won't say where they were from, but some great lads in the front. And they were piping up in the class and saying, hey, we've solved that problem this way. And we felt that it was better than the way we were doing it. So we've changed the class and we now do it that way. So we're constantly learning, constantly adapting. And it's a good class.
And where can people get it? Is it just live or is it online?
So at the moment, it is live. There's a website, if I can just say, it's called CSIlearn.learnupon.com. So CSIlearn.learnupon.com. At the moment, we have a basic OSINT class up there. So like a starter for 10, get you going if you're not worked in the industry before. And we have a forensics memory analysis class there as well. But by the end of the year, we will have our cryptocurrency 3-day class online. In fact, by the start of December, it should be there. And by about the end of the year, we should have the advanced OSINT online as well. But we teach classes. We've got one which is full in December, and we will have another date coming up in April. And I think we're looking to come out to the US with you again, Chris, aren't we? Later in 2019.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. And
so actually, if depending how many people are listening to this, if there's interest, just ping Chris, and if we get a bunch of interest, we'll make sure that we book some flights and we come out and teach your side of the pond.
And I promise to not have it in Scranton.
That is awesome.
I'm thinking more like Orlando.
We can't promise there won't be Walmart smoothies.
There's going to be Walmart smoothies. It's going to happen.
There may be Walmart smoothies, but there will not be snow. I can promise you that.
Actually, we should film this, Chris. We've got to film me walking into a Walmart in wherever, in Florida or something, and in my very best British accent, walking up to one of the cashiers and saying, "Hello, my dear lady. Please, would you mind giving me one of your best smoothies?"
And offering to pay with Bitcoin.
That's right. I shall pay you with the best Bitcoin I own.
Oh, when you come in November, we need to film that.
That would be great.
Yeah, we have to film that. Yeah, and then we'll just put that on YouTube, and we'll link it to this podcast.
Oh, fantastic! Actually, if we had a list of things we know they don't sell, It would be really fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, no smoothies. That's a shame. Do you sell small lap dogs?
One time when I was a younger man, I went into a Walmart and the guy asked if I needed help, and I said, yes, I need a razor blade, some duct tape, and a turkey baster. And he called security.
Oh, fantastic. Now, of course, the problem is that I also have to move through security coming into the country in a few weeks' time and be allowed to leave your good country. So, yeah.
Just don't ask for the razor blades. That's the only part you need to drop.
So, Nick, besides your book, we usually ask our guests, because we have a lot of avid readers, can you recommend something? It doesn't have to be about cryptocurrency or even about social engineering or about any of the topics we talked about. Can you recommend a book that you've read recently?
Yeah, I have been absolutely blown away by a book called Endurance by Scott Kelly. I would suspect that most people recognize Scott Kelly from the news. I was going to say the newsreels then. From the newsreels.
Very British of you.
Mr. Stan Chumley, over to you in the studio. He was the astronaut that has a twin, and he spent a year on the International Space Station. And it's not a science book. It's not a book about space. It's about the man. It's about how he got to the point of becoming an astronaut and how he coped with life in that environment. And I found it a great read because it was so alien to me. Everything he was explaining, everything he went through, all of his training, all of the ability to be crammed into tiny capsules for hours on end and thrown at a planet. It was so alien to me that I found it incredibly educational and a terrific read, a real page turner start to finish. So I know it's not on topic with what we're talking about, but Endurance by Scott Kelly, terrific book.
Yeah, that's okay. We have a lot of guests that come and they recommend books that have nothing to do with tech or InfoSec, and they are sometimes the clicks that get the most on our links, because I'll link that book in the show notes as well as your book, because people just enjoy reading. Sometimes we don't always want to read things that we have to do for work. Just want to enjoy a good book.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I was talking to somebody recently because I really struggle to get to sleep. Like so many people, my head is buzzing with stuff all the time. And somebody recommended to stop reading work type material at bedtime, because I'll often sit in bed and I'm reading a blog post, or I'm reading a security book, or I'm reading like that. And apparently what it's doing is in your brain, of course, your brain is working hard to connect this new information with what it already knows. And so your brain is working at quite a high rate. Whereas actually what you should be doing is stopping and reading something that doesn't connect to anything you know. So just a straight fiction book, or just some easy, what I call chewing gum reading. Do you know what I mean? It's not heavy or deep. And what that does, it switches off that part of your brain that's trying to learn and just absorbs a story, which is a whole different part of your reasoning brain. And I got to say, I have been getting to sleep much, much more easily. So if that tip helps anybody, it certainly helped me, and I'm definitely sleeping better.
Man, from smoothies to sleeping tips.
Yeah.
I'm almost a psychologist.
Nick, if people wanted to know more about you, your training, your classes, follow you and your work, how can they do that?
Okay, website csitech.co.uk, so csitech.co.uk. You can follow me on Twitter on NickFX, so Nick Foxtrot X-Ray. I don't sort of tweet what I had for dinner or anything. I just tend to tweet stuff that's relevant to what we do. And if you just search Nick Furneaux in the UK on LinkedIn, you'll find me there. And again, the only stuff that I tend to share on LinkedIn is stuff that's relevant to the work that we do. So those would be the best places.
Excellent, man. I really, really appreciate it. This was a great conversation. A lot of great info. Even we touched on SC. I still think there's some high value in for our listeners and our industry in our discussion here today. So thanks for that.
No, it's been great to be on the podcast again, and we'll look forward to speaking again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Kat.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Take care.
another amazing show.
So fantastic. Now I just have this weird craving for smoothies, and like maybe I want to go to Walmart, but like I know I don't, so my body is confused.
Well, if you do, make sure you put your shirt on backwards, wear a really weird hat and don't bathe.
And I'll ask for puppies,
Yes, that's for lap dogs and a smoothie.
Yep.
And you want to play with you want to pay with Bitcoin.
I'm gonna leave with a Beanie Baby and like an Odwalla juice. Like, let's be real.
It's all good. I love his sense of humor. I mean, I've been friends with Nick for years, so it just never gets old.
I'm so impressed at how quickly he can go from like making jokes to explaining something so clearly from the ground up.
Yeah,
wow,
I know.
You are impressive, sir.
He really is. I mean, he really, really is. I always enjoy conversations with him. So, that was just a great podcast. I hope everyone else agrees and you enjoyed it. And send in your thoughts to us either on Twitter or you can send them to us through email. Let us know if you have any great ideas for future guests. Something new we're going to try to see if you have anything you want to send to us that we could try to get some people on the show. If you want to do that, you can tweet at us at our corporate account at SOC Engineer Inc. or directly at me at Human Hacker or Kat at
Kat Murdoch, and that's a CATMURD0CK. And for a second, I forgot how to spell my last name.
Well, you recovered quite well, so I thought the pausing was for effect.
Nope, I was like, I'm just going to own this.
No, we didn't even catch it. That's good.
Okay.
Of course, you got the podcast on social-engineer.org, our corporate site on social-engineer.com. I am going to start asking for this in the shows from now on. If you can, run over to iTunes and leave us a rating. We find that if we can get some more ratings on iTunes, it kind of helps promote the show a little bit more. So if you can run over there, tell us what you think about that. And we are on Spotify now. I am super excited about that our podcast made it to Spotify. So jump on over to Spotify and you can listen to all the older episodes as well as this episode. And of course, you can download it on most of your podcast tools that you have on your phone. And I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Check out Clutch if you like the intro and outro music. If you couldn't figure it out, I'm a little bit of a fan. And
understatement.
Understatement. I know. It is. But I'll own that too. I'm very proud of being a fan of Clutch. I'm happy with that. But we will talk to you all next month. See you.
Stare into the embers on the 1st of November and remember you were born a chosen of